pleasure of introducing Dr. Subhendu Guha. He is the chairman of United Solar Organic. He is the leading authority for photovoltaics and he serves on many national and international committees on photovoltaics. Dr. Guha, it's a pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you very much for having me here.
You're a leading authority in photovoltaics. I just want your perspective on the broader industry implications in the current economic scenario.
Photovoltaic means conversion of sunlight into electricity. So basically what the solar panels do is that you put it on the rooftop and the sun shines on it, it converts into electricity and you can power the house. If you have excess electricity, you can sell it to the grids. The industry has been growing at a phenomenal rate. Typically the annual growth rate has been over the last 5 years 30 to 40%. The main reason is that people now understand the problems associated with conventional sources of energy. You know, if you burn coal, you create pollution. And many countries are promoting the use of photovoltaic.
You know, the government has been very helpful in providing relief and support and extending rebates to people who install the photovoltaics on the roof. So I'm from California. I've got great initiatives by the local utility company. But up to 33% is what we get back. But still, it's an expensive proposition. A regular 200,000 square foot house costs you close to about $75,000. So you get back, one third of it. It's still expensive. You're saying going forward is going to be the low?
You are absolutely right, because today solar electricity cannot compete with conventional sources of fuel if there is no incentive. Many countries, as a matter of fact, Europe is much more generous in giving incentive to promote solar electricity than the United States. That's why a little place like Germany has more than 50% of the world market for PV. What they are doing is that they are giving incentive to use of solar electricity, and what that does is that allows manufacturers to expand their production facility, that allows manufacturers to develop improved technology, and based on that, the cost starts coming down. Today, we are not at grid parity yet, but almost every manufacturer you talk to, they will tell you that within the next 3 to 4 years, in sunny areas like California, we are going to reach grid parity.
If you take examples of manufacturers, so Japan is a big manufacturer. We get a lot of panels from Matsushita in Japan. Are there opportunities for emerging countries like India, like China, to increase production and advance in this technology? Because people are still reluctant to go to these countries to get manufactured.
When you think about why is it Japan has so many manufacturers? Because Japan was a leader in terms of use of solar electricity. The manufacturing base goes to the place where there is a market. Till very recently, in India, there is no market at all. Very recently, over the last 6 months, the government of India has started offering some special incentives to use of solar electricity, and I predict that within a year or two, you'll find a number of large manufacturers going to India to take advantage of the local emerging market.
I'll take you again to India, to the consumer products. And I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs trying to create, for example, one bulb capable, photovoltaic facilities, or instead of lanterns, replacing those with energy efficient through solar panels. So there is a market that is still needs to be nurtured, which is in the consumer market. How do you address those problems?
The unfortunate part is that the incentives are in countries or in places where they don't need as much. I mean, if you think about what solar can do, is solar can be most effective, solar electricity can be most effective where you don't have access to conventional electricity. Places like India and China, you have thousands and thousands of square miles of area where they don't have access to the main grid. But without incentive, you cannot go there. So even in India and China, where they are allowing incentives, that's more for grid type system. What I mean by that is that where you put solar on a rooftop, where already you have access to the grid. I think in order to really promote solar to people who cannot afford to have electricity, you have to give incentives to people who do not have access to the grid.
You know, you're right. In countries like the US, whatever is extra that we are generating, we're sending it back to the utility companies, and rather selling it back, although there's not much money to be gained by that. But countries like India and in the Indian subcontinent don't have that facility, so it has to be on standalone, battery generated. And like I said in the previous question, there are challenges, and entrepreneurs and consumers both struggling to meet those challenges because there is a big demand there. So to further expand what you said in the previous question, how do we expand this? I mean, when there is no facility for the electricity to go back to the grid?
You know, that really will depend on the foresight of the government. Like in India, if you go to a village, people still use kerosene lanterns. Now, kerosene is heavily subsidized by the government of India, but the villagers can afford it because they don't have the upfront expenses associated with the lantern. Now, if you buy a solar lantern, initially there is an upfront expense, but later on the electricity comes free because sun is there all the time. So what one has to do in countries like that is to have a lending mechanism by which villagers can get the upfront money. They can buy the consumer items that we talked about, and then they pay back to the bank every month. I think that kind of thing has to be done. I know that there are some organizations in India who are doing that, but that's at a very, very small scale.
Finally, for entrepreneurs, clean tech is hot, it's emerging, everybody wants to get into it. But it's a huge, huge ball game. I'm trying to understand from you, because we have very few authorities who like to speak on this subject. How do you think up-and-coming entrepreneurs should address this market?
You see, PV manufacturing, solar cell manufacturing, is a capital-intensive business. So basically, if you want to be a manufacturer of solar panels, you have to raise the money. But there is a climate today to fund startup companies. I mean, you'll be amazed how much money has been raised in the last 2 years to start manufacturing operation. But on the other hand, if you go further downstream, if you buy the solar from a manufacturer, but spend your energy and time in deployment of the solar, that has less capital needed. And I think that's a market where people can get into very, very easily and quickly.
Dr. Guha, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Good talking to you.